Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? Welcome to another one of our super exciting instructional videos. We've been balancing equations, and so I wanted to post a few videos here to help you out with this process of balancing a chemical equation. This is the practice worksheet that I'll be referring to. This had 6 chemical equations that you could have balanced on it. We used the back side of this to write down some steps to balancing equations right here. If you don't have this worksheet, make sure you get a hard copy from me and then write down some of those steps, which I'll be going through at least some of them right now. The focus of this video is learning how to take inventory, which is a term that we use in here to account for the different parts of a chemical equation. So this video specifically will be how to take inventory, and I'll do a follow-up video on how to actually finish balancing equations. So anyway, on the board behind me, I just found this. This was here, so we'll use it. This is a chemical equation, right? And so its basic parts are everything on this side of the equation, because the arrow is pointing the other way. These are considered to be our reactants. These are the ingredients that are going into making up our final product. And the arrow always points to the products over here. And so this is the final product. But it's not balanced, or at least we don't know if it's balanced. So here's how we do this process of taking inventory. The first thing that I ask students to do is to find the arrow and draw a line straight down, just like this, to show that we know the dividing line between our reactants and our products, right? What starts off in the chemical equation and what ends up being made at the very end. Don't skip that step, please. Okay? I see students all the time making mistakes, and I look at their work and they've skipped that basic step. The next part of taking inventory, like with any inventory, is we figure out what we have and how much of it we have. So on the left-hand side of the equation, we'll take inventory. We have boron over here, so I'm going to list it down below. Remember, putting that down there doesn't change anything about the equation. This is just for my purposes. I'm keeping track of what's here. And I also have some fluorine here as well, so I'll list that down below as well. Because our products have to equal our reactants as far as mass goes, we have to have the same type of elements over here as well. We have boron represented. So I'm going to take another inventory for the right-hand side of the equation, and I have fluorine as well. Okay? That takes care of what we have. Now we have to figure out how much of it we have. On this left-hand side for boron, since there are no numbers around it, there's no coefficients in front of it, and there's no subscript down here, we automatically just assume that it is 1. We have 1 boron atom there. Fluorine is pretty similar. We have the subscript of 2. It applies to the F and only to the F, and so we have 2 fluorines. Okay? Come on over to the products, and let's take a look at what's supposed to be there when it's all said and done. We have a boron here tied to these fluorine, but there's no subscript here. There's no number, and there's no coefficient in the front. So again, we just get to assume that it's 1, which is fantastic, because look at the boron over here. There's only 1. We started with 1. We ended with 1. Right now, that's looking pretty good. Fluorine over here, however, there are 3 of them. This 3 only applies to the fluorine. It does not apply back over to boron. So in our inventory down here, we'd write that we have 3 fluorine. Now, the main purpose of taking inventory is to figure out, is this equation balanced or unbalanced? And by balanced or unbalanced, we just mean, do we have the same number of atoms that we started off with in our final product? And in here, we don't. We have a problem with the fluorine. We only have 2 fluorine here, and somehow magically at the end, we have 3. That would require us to work with this equation to balance it. Another video for another time. This one is just taking inventory. Okay, I'll show you one other similar equation on how to take inventory and see if that helps. So if that clicked for you, then go ahead and end. You can stop this video. Otherwise, I'll do one more example on the board for you. Okay, this one comes from this worksheet as well. So if you are reviewing this worksheet or doing it for the first time, go ahead and refer to number 5. This one is looks a little more complex. We have aluminum and we have oxygen bonded together. And that is going to, in this case, break apart and give us just aluminum by itself and an O2 molecule like that. Okay? Now the rules for taking inventory on this one are exactly the same. All right? We find that arrow, which divides our reactants from our products. I know this one looks weird. How do we have more products than we have reactants? This is a different type of equation that we'll talk about more later this week. Okay? Find the arrow. Draw the line down every single time. Now we're ready to take inventory. On the left-hand side with our reactants, we have aluminum. It's right here. And we have oxygen. Even though they're bonded together, we keep track of what we have here. Okay? The right-hand side, we have the same elements. We have aluminum and we have oxygen. Now we're ready to count up how many of each we have. Okay? Over here, the subscript 2 applies just to aluminum, so we have 2 aluminums. And the 3 applies just to the oxygen, so we have 3 oxygens. Okay? On this side of the equation, aluminum all by itself means that we just have 1 aluminum and 2 oxygens. And when we look at this equation, there's all sorts of messed up stuff, right? Nothing is balanced. We start off with 2 aluminums, it looks like 1 disappears. We start off with 3 oxygen, and it looks like 1 of those disappears as well. So this equation is ready for balancing. I'll probably leave this one up and start the next video with this idea, but that's how you take inventory. When we start to mess around with this equation and add coefficients, taking inventory is something we're going to have to do over and over and over again. So you want to make sure that you are really very comfortable with taking this first inventory because it's going to determine all of your other steps. Okay? Feel free to pause, rewind, send me an email or something like that, and we'll talk about this later.